Okay, happy Friday, everyone. My name is Mark Baston, and I'd like to welcome each of you to the Man Group Summer Series of free webinars. Today's webinar is titled Removing Obstacles to Performance, Part 3 of the 7 Tips to Manage Your Success. We're glad you're here, and in just a minute, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dan Mann. But before I do, let me go over a couple of quick items. First, I want to make sure everyone can see the presentation properly before we get started. On your screen right now, you should see a picture of a large yellow industrial bulldozer. If you're having any issues, please let me know. Secondly, on your control panel, near the bottom, you should see the word chat. And if you will click on this tab, it will open a dialog box for you to submit questions or offer comments. Lastly, just so we don't have any background noise, we have everyone muted during the presentation. So if you have any questions you'd like answered, please just type them in the chat portion of your control panel, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Again, we welcome you. And now I'd like to turn it over to the founder and owner of the Man Group, Dan Mann.
Hello, folks, and we're really happy to have all of you on the call today. Sorry about the little technical difficulty getting our mute button pushed, but we are really excited to be sharing with you the 7 secrets to management success. It's our ongoing summer webinar series, and we're really passionate about offering something for specialty retail store managers. Your role is crucial, vital to the success of your store ownership, and as well as your customers and your staff. You sit in the middle of a very important role that affects a lot of people. So we're excited to be offering some specific tips to you that hopefully will make a difference in your role. We have been looking at the 7 steps over the past 4 weeks, and I want to quickly review, in case you've missed any of those, what our other 7 steps were. The first secret is setting the bar for great performance, setting the standard and understanding what is required. Secondly, evaluating performance against that standard. Here we see someone coaching the world's greatest golfer. So setting the standard, and then evaluating performance against that standard. That brings us to today's topic, removing obstacles, which we'll get to in just a moment. Also important for store managers is our 4th secret to management success, and that's securing buy-in from your team. How do you get everyone rowing in the same direction, doing everything for the good of the whole? Which means we must have the right team members. Who do we have working for us, and make sure they're just right for the work that we have. When you've got a team, motivation and discipline are crucial. Motivating and inspiring the troops to do the work that is called for. Which brings us to the 7th secret to management success, which we believe is the single most important tool for a store manager, and that is communication effectiveness. We'll get to those as we go forward in our coming weeks, but today we're talking about removing obstacles to performance. Now, you know, you've got a situation where you've got a team of people that work for you. Some of the team members are great. They do everything that you ask. They do it with a smile on their face, and they get great results. And you have a few other people on your team. For some reason, you're just not getting great performance. They're late to work. They underperform with customers. They get a few complaints from time to time. Ultimately, we're just not getting what we want. What are the obstacles? What's causing that? Why are people not doing what would be in the store's best interest or in their own best interest? In order to understand the obstacles to performance, we have to take a look at motivation. What is it that motivates people? What is it that moves people in a direction? Why do people do the things that they do? Certainly, that's a very complicated question, and there are a set of complicated answers. Lots of things motivate people, from money to power, love, security, health, and on the list could go of what it is that motivates various people. But from our perspective today, from the standpoint of a retail store manager and you're supervising and leading people, there are basically 2 types of motivations that we want to look at. 2 ways you can look at your team. They're either one type of motivation or the other. The first type of motivation I want to look at is called protective motivation. Now, what's a protectively motivated person? Well, this is a person that does just enough to protect their job. They come to work and do just enough that you won't fire them, just enough that you can't let them go. But they're not going to do anything great. They're a bit of a slacker, like Spicoli here. So here we have, certain members of your team. They are certainly in the store. They're a warm body. Are they successful? Are they getting you great results? No, they're protectively motivated, doing just enough to keep their job. A quick question for you: of your staff, what percentage of your staff would you say are protectively motivated? What percentage of the people that you have working for you are doing just enough to keep their job? Well, um, you can answer that question yourself. Only you can answer. But what do you have to do when you've got protective motivation on your floor? Well, you're going to have to set up rules. You're going to have to set up regulations. You're going to have to set up policies. You're going to have to enforce those policies. You're going to have to write people up. You're going to have to double check and follow up and go back and make sure things got done, and end up in many cases doing it yourself. The work of managing protective motivated people is not fun for a retail store manager. The second type of motivation is fun, and that's achievement motivation. People, just like Clark Kent here, who are looking for the opportunity to achieve. They want to achieve. They want to set goals and achieve them. They want to get things done, and they always seem to. It doesn't matter what you ask them to do. Go make more sales. They're great with customers. Go help me clean the store back room up. Help me clean up the store. They're great at cleaning. Help me fold and reset this wall. They're great with visual merchandising. Help me reset these displays. They're great with doing merchandising. If you asked them to dig a ditch out behind the store, it'd be the cleanest, sharpest, best dug ditch in existence, because they are wired to achieve. Now, certainly, we want achievement-motivated people on our sales floor working for us. Sadly, statistics tell us only 8 to 12% of the population would fall into this category. The reality is that you probably have some protectively motivated people. But let's take a look at the obstacles to success for the achievement-motivated person. What typically causes poor performance among your achievement-motivated people? These are your typical motivation obstacles. Red tape. So we have people who can't get work done because you've got such a complicated structure and process that they can't navigate through it. Sometimes the achievement-motivated person is obstructed by a lack of opportunity. They've been working there for 2 years, but nothing's happened. Technology shortfalls. We work in a workforce. We live in a workforce where people are highly sophisticated and things happen at the speed of light. Well, is your business offering that sort of technology skills internally? Unable to contribute. I've got ideas, but they're not heard. I've got great ideas that we ought to bring to the company, but nobody really wants to hear what I have to say, and they don't let me contribute. Ultimately, a lack of recognition. Hey, I've been succeeding. No one ever notices it. I come in every day early. I stay late. No one ever notices it. My sales are number one in the company. No one ever mentions it. A lack of recognition. These become obstacles to your achievement-motivated people. The staff that you want to retain get highly disenfranchised and demotivated by these sorts of obstacles, not the least of which is the last one on this list, and that is tolerating a low commitment in others. In other words, you as a manager, you've got working on your sales floor a highly motivated, achievement-motivated person working alongside of a protectively motivated person. Your achievement-motivated person watches you tolerate poor performance, tardiness, underperformance in sales, not really caring about great customer service. And that actually becomes a demotivator to your achievement-oriented people. These become obstacles to performance. These things cause your highly motivated people to be disenfranchised and demotivated. Now, in June's issue of Forbes magazine, we have another list of those things that cause people to leave. Why are people leaving your store? Why are the obstacles so great that they become demotivated and leave? Well, there's no vision. I don't know what the company's trying to do. No one talks to me about the big picture, and so I don't see what we're doing here, and I'm not interested in it. And worse, if there is a vision, there's no connection to it. I don't understand why we're doing what we're doing. These things don't make sense to me. The big picture drives me crazy, and I lose interest. My manager, my leadership, there's no empathy for my life, for the things I'm doing. And so I've lost my interest in being empathetic back to the company. There's no motivation. There's no good leadership in place that's inspiring and driving great behavior, and that causes me a problem. And therefore, I don't see any future for this. I don't see what the opportunity is. And meanwhile, I'm having no fun whatsoever. If this describes your organization and your company, if this describes your sales staff's point of view of your company, this is a pretty serious obstacle to performance. And these are all, many of these are highly emotional obstacles, but still, this causes staff members to lose their focus, lose their enthusiasm, and as a result, performance is affected. Now, historically, for the past, I'd say 12 to 15 years, the statistics answer this question the same way. Why do employees quit? The number one reason why employees quit a job historically has been the manager. People leave over the manager. That's the number one reason. I don't like the person I'm working for, or the person I'm working for doesn't listen to me, or the person I'm working for doesn't give me opportunity. And so if you're on the call today here and you're a store manager or an owner, the first question you must ask yourself in removing obstacles, are you a manager that someone is quitting on? Are you the obstacle? Is your performance, is your leadership setting the bar, setting the standard, motivating and inspiring your team? Because typically, historically, and statistically, the number one reason why people have an obstacle to performance is in poor management. The challenge for us as managers is to lead and be strong and be compassionate and to be passionate. And so that's the first question we must ask. But statistics like that have been gathered for years through organizations like the Gallup poll and other traditional ways of calling people on the phone and asking them to give us their answers. There's a new type of data gathering that's coming from social media, and the new research is giving us some interesting answers. This is an infographic that just came out in the last 30 days about employment, the workforce, and why people do what they do when it comes to their job. There's one very interesting element here that I'd like to take a look at. It's often said that people leave managers, not companies. That's the stat I just gave you. However, only 8% in the past 6 months left their last job because of their manager. What was their number one reason? Their number one reason was money. Now, this goes counter to everything I've ever taught and counter to anything I've really typically believed. But we must recognize that the world has changed in the last 3 to 5 years. And one of the first most interesting things I think to take a look at is, how are we compensating our people? And is the compensation structure that you have in your organization, does it give people opportunity? If I'm making $8 an hour and there's nothing clearly stated as to how I might make $10 an hour, or what the opportunity is for me in the future to ever make $15 an hour, and if that's not stated and it's not clear and it's not laid out and it's not even happening, well, that's an obstacle. If I'm demotivated by finances or financial opportunity, then I would be motivated to find a job where there is at least some form of opportunity. And that means for you, manager, you, owner, you must take a look at your compensation plan and find out if there is inspiring opportunity for people to stay with your company, be retained with your company, and grow their own revenue, because that is becoming another reason why people are choosing to leave. Now, how do we know what the situation is in your case? How do we uncover that obstacle that's happening in a in your underperforming staff? Store staff's not doing what they want. How do we figure it out? Well, there's your magic answer. Listening. You got to hear what, I don't know what your staff's motivations are. I'm not sure what your staff is feeling. And so you're only going to find that out to sit down with someone, sit across from them and go, hey, Jim, listen, I can see that your performance is slipping. Your sales aren't what they once were. I see you're starting to come in late. Tell me what's going on. What's really happening? And let them tell you what is going on. Learn to be a great listener. Now, I will tell you, listening is not easy. Listening is difficult and challenging. And there are some very specific obstacles to great listening. And you as a manager must understand what the reasons why It's a challenge to listen. The number one obstacle to great listening we do to ourselves, and that's multitasking. If you are distracted, if you are trying to do other things at the same time, if you have got your cell phone in your hand, if you are trying to fill out your schedule, if you're trying to work the floor while you're having a quote unquote listening session with one of your employees, you can count on being less effective. Here are the stats. Once you begin multitasking, your overall effectiveness is reduced by 40%. And that is why the states don't allow you to text while driving, or in many cases, even talk on the phone while driving. Because when you do that, your ability to drive is reduced by 40%. So when you're sitting across from an employee and you're saying, hey, what's going on? Tell me what's happening. And you pull your phone out and start texting, you're only going to hear 60% of what they say. So what 60% are you willing to live with, and what 40% are you willing to live without? So multitasking will hurt you. You can't do it to be an effective listener. This is true in business. It's true in life. Your next obstacle to great listening are assumptions. You may think you know what's going on with your employee. They are, you think to yourself, they're just lazy, or they just want this job while they look for another job, or they only want this job because they like the discounts. You make those assumptions, and how are you really going to be able to hear what they tell you when they tell you that there's some other issue that's driving the problem? So beware of your assumptions. They will cause you to mishear what's actually being said. And the third and final obstacle to great listening that I'm going to give you today is interpretation. Interpretation is when you mishear, misrepresent what is being said to you, where you missed what was said. Let me give you a quick example. A college student comes to his father with his friends and says, hey, Dad, I'd like to borrow the car for spring break. My friends and I want to go to the beach. And Dad says to his son, that's fine. I'll be happy to let you borrow my car, but I want you to remember something, and it's very important that you hear me. Are you guys listening? And the boys say, yeah, we're listening. Well, listen, this is very important that you hear this. You can borrow the car, but you can't put too much oil in that car. Okay, all right, Dad, great, got it. Well, let me say it again. I want to make sure you hear me. You can't put too much oil in that car. The boys say, great, Dad. So they take the keys and they take off driving. They're driving down the road, and the son who's driving pulls over at the first gas station, and the friends say, hey, what are you doing? And the son says, well, I'm stopping to get some oil. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and get a case of oil now just to be sure. And the boys say, well, why are you getting oil? And he goes, you heard what my dad said. My dad said you can't put too much oil in this car. So I'm going to make sure we got plenty of oil so that every time we stop, we can just keep putting it in. I don't want to, you heard how important that was to my dad, that you can't put too much oil, so I'm going to keep putting a lot of oil in. And the other, one of the friends said, that's not what your dad said. Your dad said that you can't put too much oil, so you got to be careful. In fact, I would say let's don't put any oil in the car at all on this trip. So here you go, a situation where one statement has been said that is interpreted entirely two opposite directions by two different people based on the fact that they had their own interpretation. How do you avoid interpretations as a manager? Well, you clarify. So, Dad, you say you can't put too much oil in that car, but just bear me out here, Dad. Does that mean I should put a lot of oil in the car, or are you telling me not to ever put oil in the car? Just like that, you can figure out the problem instead of assuming you know what he means and interpreting from your own perspective. That is crucial, and that's a reason why we oftentimes don't do a good job of listening. Listen, as a manager, I can tell you there's great power in being listened to. And just like this little kid, look at this. He is there with his dad, and he's got his dad's full attention. How does that feel? His dad is doing nothing but listening. He's down on his level, eye to eye, face to face. It's the greatest experience in the world. And as a manager, do you ever stop and truly listen to your staff? And if it's a person who's underperforming, if it's a person who's not doing what you want, is it possible that you've not truly stopped and listened and said, hey, what's going on? Tell me what the problem is. You're not doing what we're looking for here, and I want to know what is happening. Talk to me. and then really listening so that that person feels like that you're ready to hear what they have to say. We already know one of the top reasons why staff become disenfranchised is they feel they're not listened to and that their ideas are not taken seriously. So here you go. Stop and listen. To finalize that, I quote Stephen Covey from his great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. As a manager, this is an absolute core skill. Seek first to understand. Once you understand, then you have the right and you've earned the privilege to have them listen to you and understand you. But first, understand. Great listening is the secret to removing obstacles to performance. Once we figure those out, then we can dial in what we would do in response. Now, I know we've got opportunity for some questions. We've got a little time left. I'm going to pass this over to Mark to facilitate any questions that we may have from you guys.
Dan, thanks. We do have one question so far, and it's based on your description. I have several protective, motivated employees, and I wanted to know, are there any quick fixes?
Okay, good question. Man, the fact is all of us do. You know, if you're running a retail store, you've got some protective, motivated people. Just recognize this. Bottom line, where do you spend all your time? If you've got 6 protective, motivated people and 4 achievement motivated people, you're probably spending all of your time with the 6. And the first thing I would say is you ought to switch the balance of power and begin investing your time in your achievement motivated people. Because it would be possible to perhaps affect the influence of someone who is protectively motivated to have them learn and understand and decide to become achievement motivated, because that's where the real reward is for you as a manager, is investment in your achievement motivated people. The quick fix is you're going to have process and you're going to have follow-up. For me, the quick fix is I don't want to have my time spent in carrots and sticks. I want to have my focus on really having a rewarded management style of coaching and leading achievement motivated people. So I'm going to turn my attention there, and I'm going to set up my processes and do my follow-ups and double check with people. But I can tell you, as soon as one of those protectively motivated people leave, I'm replacing them with somebody who's achievement motivated. I'm going to do my best job of interviewing to make sure I've got the right person. I'm going to start replacing protectively motivated people with achievement. And it's not quick. So I guess, the bottom line is it's understanding what you've got there and then making these new choices. Back to you, Mark.
Well, that's all the questions I have right now, Dan. But I do want to let everyone know that I'll be sending out a 4-question survey later this afternoon. So you'll all have my contact information handy if you have any other questions or comments. Dan, why don't you spend a little bit of time, just a couple minutes on Man U?
I will. Thanks, Mark. And I just want to conclude by recognizing that we've only spent 24 minutes today on this topic. And this topic is crucial. And it's not the kind of thing you can really learn or adapt in 20 minutes. And that's why we at the Man Group have created Man U. And Man U is our management training camp held here in Asheville, North Carolina. It's 3 days of intense learning about how you can become a highly effective retail store manager, focused on leadership and profitability. We've got some great topics that we cover: leading with impact, motivating and leading as a player coach. That's a crucial one. The confident communicator, as we said, the #1 skill needed. Strategic leadership for results and leading change and team building. Listen, if you're serious about being an excellent store manager, if you're an owner who's serious about growing their business, investing in your store manager for this sort of development would pay off for you 100 times over, no question. So we encourage you to consider. The next session is October the 6th with a deadline for sign up of September the 6th, and another session this year in November, and then we start up again in January. So if you'd like to know more information about Man U, please reach out to us at the Man Group. We will tell you that we are continuing this free webinar series the 23rd, the 30th, and the 6th, step 4, steps 5 and 6, and step 7. So hopefully you'll join us for the remaining webinars, and we really appreciate your attendance today, and you guys have a great weekend. Thanks very much.